Okay, so the recording has started. This is preparing for the mid-year performance reviews of AMERICORPS members who are serving in the 2017-2018 service year. And this is Catherine Calloway, Disaster Workforce Engagement Manager, also host site manager for the AMERICORPS program. We've got Ari Denson on the phone. He's a host site manager in Western Kentucky, or host site supervisor rather in Western Kentucky. And we are recording this for those who are not able to make it today. You ready to get started, Ari?
Let's make this happen.
Sorry?
I'm ready.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, you're pretty quiet. I've got. Oh, you know what? I might have. Let me see if I can get my speakers to work.
Better now?
A little bit better. Alrighty. Okay, so I had sent out the calendar item with 3 documents in it. The member position description, the member service plan, and the evaluation form. It is a requirement of our federal grantor that we do a mid-year evaluation of all AMERICORPS members and a year-end evaluation of all AMERICORPS members. If at all possible, if we have AMERICORPS members who serve with us a shorter amount of time, if they exit early, we still try to do an exit interview with them. It hasn't happened this year because they left abruptly, but we try and get a mid-year and a year-end evaluation done. So, looking at the position description, just to remind ourselves what it is that our AMERICORPS members are here to do, and they are to serve in disaster preparedness education, specifically in the home fire campaign and its project components of pillowcase project and sound the alarm. So they're committed to completing an 11-month term of service and 1,700 hours minimum. They will deliver preparedness education to 250 adults through the home fire campaign, preparedness education to 750 youth through the pillowcase project, and build local capacity to support preparedness education by training 5 new lead volunteers. I think when I was there earlier, Ari, we had a question, was it 5 volunteers or 5 new lead volunteers? And it is lead volunteers, so we're looking for those leads to take over when the AMERICORPS term is over. They will participate in National Days of Service, so there was an attempt to get them at MLK Day and do some deaf and hard of hearing smoke alarm installation, and the weather was not terribly cooperative, so some AMERICORPS members were able to do that, and some were not. They submit bi-weekly timesheets, and they're all quite good at that because they do get reminders from America Learns. They participate in the local disaster action team, and we have asked that they limit their participation in that to 1 house fire per month so that we can protect them from being too much pulled into disaster response and leave them as firmly as possible in disaster preparedness. They may deploy. It is optional. They may choose to deploy for a national deployment, and that is if they choose and at our discretion as the program supervisor and manager, whether the program can operate effectively without them for 2 to 3 weeks. They received during orientation the AMERICORPS member handbook that outlines their program-specific requirements, responsibilities, policies that drive us. They received also the employee handbook and the volunteer handbook that they were responsible for reading because they fall somewhere between an employee and a volunteer. And so some policies from each of those apply to them. Are there any questions, Ari, about the position description?
How are you measuring for the lead volunteer? Is that like someone who just looks over a county? Is that someone who focuses on the entire territory?
Yeah, that is a very good question. I am not certain how we are defining a lead volunteer, so I will take that away as finding out how we define lead volunteer. So that will be my question to get answered.
Thanks.
Alrighty. Okay, so I'm now going to open the member service plan. So the member service plan was provided during orientation, and it is a sort of a generic, sort of a template, sort of a starting point for each of our AmeriCorps member and his or her supervisor to sit down and to build out based on the needs of the territory. So it has some very basic what the minimum expectations that we expect them to be meeting during each quarter. We expect the first quarter of their service year to be a learn by doing, so they are more the volunteer, getting their hands on. The middle part of their service year to be recruiting and training and engaging volunteers in these activities, and then the end of their service year to be preparing it for their departure so that it is sustainable, that they have identified those lead volunteers that are taking the pieces of project management and able to continue the momentum of the projects that they are leaving behind after their service year. So we did ask you to sit down with your members during orientation, at least the September orientation. It's been a little bit different from the members who've been added since then in January and February. We didn't take the time to sit down and fill this out during the orientation, but making certain that they have met these requirements. And so for Ari, Dawn is in her second year, so she has moved quickly beyond all of these, having completed just about all of them during her first year, but this will be important for our January and February starting members to be doing. So the minimum requirements for being a pillowcase presenter, making certain that they get all of that done as quickly as possible during their first quarter. And certainly Dawn is there. She is a pillowcase presenter trainer, so she can train others to present pillowcase. And you've got one scheduled that Amy and Cheryl can attend soon, right?
Yeah, Don set up one on the 22nd.
All right. Great. So we've got one already for those guys, and we also want them to become, all of the AmeriCorps members to become certified so that they can also teach new pillowcase presenters. So we will want basic instructor specialty training. And I talked to Linda about the scheduling of that in Western Kentucky coming up. Monica had wanted it in Territory 2, so I had suggested could we maybe have it in Bowling Green, because there are these 5 new AmeriCorps members that need the basic instructor specialty training, in addition to the Eastern Kentucky ladies have not yet gotten it. So we've got already there an almost full class. So we'll try and get that scheduled pretty soon if it will stop raining and we can stop responding to disasters. So especially where like the Eastern Kentucky folks, Jamie is in her second year of AmeriCorps and still has not taken BIST. And Nikki is halfway through her AmeriCorps year and still has not taken BIST. So it is something that I'm going to be more careful about monitoring in future, that we are meeting these metrics and making certain that our AmeriCorps members are fulfilling the obligations that we've gotten that we brought them on board to do. So pillowcase is their goal number 1. And home fire campaign is goal number 2. We're now calling that sound the alarm. So this form has not been updated to reflect home fire campaign as the umbrella for sound the alarm and pillowcase as its project components. But this was from September, and it still includes the Sound the Alarm, when Sound the Alarm was going to be a big event in the fall, that have all been now rescheduled, not all, not Tompkinsville, but the others have been rescheduled for April. Want to make sure that you guys are all paying attention to the Sound the Alarm coming up in April. I know I've mentioned a number of times that they are in or around National Volunteer Week, so that's a good way of capitalizing on the interest of volunteering in the community, and that we want AmeriCorps members taking leadership roles during this, sitting in on the planning meetings and really contributing to the planning for the Sound the Alarm coming up in the spring. And then goal number 3, is engaging an equipped workforce. So 16, 17 members had been rather intricately involved in engaging an equipped workforce, working in volunteer engagement. They helped design the engagement plan that we're operating under right now, and they helped pilot that. There was less so formally placed on the 2017-18 AmeriCorps members in engagement, but they have recently been asked to take part of a project. It started before Christmas, that any volunteers that came through and were approved as new volunteers during Harvey up to now, how many of them have been actively engaged? How many of them wanted to come on board just for the disasters and just for the hurricanes, the big events, and maybe no longer have any interest? So Jarrett has taken that project on himself to manage and is working with the other AmeriCorps members first to take a look at all of the volunteers who have been approved since Hurricane Harvey hit, and to coordinate with the DPMs to make certain that the AmeriCorps members are not contacting folks who are already engaged and are actively participating and don't need any encouragement because they're doing just fine on their own or with the DPM or DPS or another volunteer supervisor. And once that's done, then it is a service that the AmeriCorps members are providing to the territories to then call each of the new volunteers and offer them the opportunity to install some smoke alarms, to shadow some pillowcase projects, or to see if there's an interest in the recovery casework team, among others. But those are the three activities that they're starting with, because the AmeriCorps members are doing a service for the territories by making the phone calls, but they are also doing a service to themselves by trying to recruit for their own projects, and for Linda, who asked for their help. So that is meant to be supplementing what engagement is already going on in the territories. It is meant to be a help, assistance, support. So the AmeriCorps members should be working carefully, closely with the DPMs to make sure that that is in fact what it is. Alrighty, then the rest of the member service plan includes ways to make certain that they feel involved as part of the disaster team. They are somewhere between volunteers and paid staff. We want them at staff meetings. We want them participating in things that are available to staff, especially if it's going to further their development in whatever role they have chosen to concentrate in during their year of service. So there are some getting involved in disaster action team, making certain that they are getting the same kind of training so that they can be they can represent Red Cross and Red Cross Corps well. And then we also want them to, it's not formally on here, and it will be for the 18-19 service year, we will formally put on here what have our AmeriCorps members chosen to a special project for themselves to do. And it's supposed to be supplemental, helpful, boosting to them, a resume builder. Like in Western Kentucky, I think Dawn, maybe not formally, but it's my understanding that she really has sort of embraced staff services as something that she wants to learn and do and be good at. Is that the case? Is that something that she has decided to do, and y'all have let her do this?
I mean, that's certainly the case in Fulton County, and that she's taken for that happened there, I want to say March of last year, and really ran with a group of people and developed them as, responders. So, yeah, you could say that's one of her side projects.
Okay. Great. So like I said, for 18-19, I want to put it formally on the member service plan that once they sort of get their orientation under them and their feet under them and they understand what disaster does and what Red Cross does, that they can develop with their supervisors their own special project to take on. And so Dawn has done a lot of work in Fulton County, and she's embraced staff services on a DRO. Flowers has done staff services and deployed in that. I don't know if that's where she wanted to really concentrate. But I am going to be making visits around after you guys do your sit down with your AmeriCorps members in the next month, and then we can talk about, and I can help maybe formalize this to a certain extent, what their special projects are. Okay, so we did add some bits at the bottom for professional expectations. So we added these after last year. So going forward over the next month, I'm going to ask the AmeriCorps site supervisors to schedule the mid-year evaluation with your AmeriCorps members and have a sit down. And one of the things that I want you guys to do during that time is to look at the member service plan and make any revisions necessary. Mark off what's already been done, so you've got those dates of accomplishment in there for Biffy, and you've got the dates of accomplishment for going on DAT runs, etc. That we need to do for our records. But make any updates, like if you want to add that special project. For Dawn taking on Fulton County and taking on staff services and other members that might have that. We would add for Jarrett that he's going to be leading this volunteer engagement project. We'll add that to his. So for professional expectations, doesn't really fit in that category, but I want us to add this, that there's a regularly scheduled meeting between the AmeriCorps members and the site supervisors. For the 18-19 service year, what I'm going to add on here is that there's a regular weekly meeting between site supervisors and AmeriCorps members, and it can be a sit-down, formal supervision meeting where you've got an agenda, or it can be a quick check-in. I'm not going to put the expectation that it's a weekly meeting right now because they're halfway through the service year and some of these patterns have already been established, but I do want to add specifically to this going forward that there is a regularly scheduled bi-weekly, monthly, something meeting so that you are sitting down and addressing AmeriCorps concerns or questions or expectations going forward. So as part of this mid-year review, please sit down and get this updated. My plan for what's going on over the next month is that the supervisors and the AmeriCorps members are doing this together, updating the member service plan and completing the evaluation form. And that my visit that I have already scheduled with most of you is to come in and not sit down and do the mid-year review, but just to go over it, just to see if there are any ways that I can, any questions that I can get answered, any takeaways that I can get that are going to strengthen our program going forward, any best practices we need to share, any sort of mediation or additional resources to see what needs to be done there. So I'm going to move away from the member service plan. I'm going to ask that be updated and ready to go by the end of March. So you'll have scheduled your mid-year review, and I will have been by to visit you. So by the end of March, this should be updated by the site supervisor and the AmeriCorps member, please. So I'm going to move to the evaluation form. All right, this is the same evaluation form that we used last year. Pretty basic. So this is the mid-year evaluation form, and every AmeriCorps member will get one. So we've looked at the position description and the member service plan. So this should reflect what the expectations were of the AmeriCorps member when he or she started her service and how well we have moved to meeting them. Nothing on this evaluation should come as a surprise to the AmeriCorps member. If there were questions, concerns, behavioral or performance during the service year, those should have been addressed in a timely manner immediately when they happen, especially if they are concerns, because to allow them or to not address them right away means that we are allowing the behavior to continue. So the member evaluation form is not necessarily where disciplinary and other kind of concerns need to be documented, especially if we've already dealt with them. If there was already a discipline issue a month ago and we dealt with it, that should be done. To bring it up on an evaluation form can be problematic. It can cause it can be a pretty awkward and pretty uncomfortable conversation. When really what we want is to make certain that the expectations that were set at the beginning of the year were clear and they're being met, and what we need to do going forward. So this is another, it's sort of a resetting of expectations. So it's a conversation to reset those expectations, restate them or add to them, change them, so that the rest of the year we're all on the same page and knows what's going on. So you're just rating your AmeriCorps member based on these categories. And then just a couple of lines of narration that lets the AmeriCorps member, it documents the strengths of the AmeriCorps members. It documents the areas of improvement for your AmeriCorps member. So is your AmeriCorps member a real go-getter and super motivated and really does well with minimal direction? Because that tends to be the way that our programs operate, and it is the way that we sold the program to all of our AmeriCorps applicants. So we hope that that's the kind of member that we've gotten and the way that they are performing. So maybe there are some specific strengths in that. Some areas for improvement. Again, this should not be brand new information. If they are ongoing needs and areas of improvement, please let's go ahead. Like some of our AmeriCorps members have a little bit of trouble getting out of bed in the morning and getting to work in a timely manner. You'd address it with them as it's happening, but you might want to document it as continuing to need improvement. Then the AmeriCorps member will also rate him or herself and how well he or she thinks that he is doing during the service year. And so it's an opportunity to discuss that. And then signatures, member signature, staff signature, and then providing to me for their files. We keep this on file in America Learns, along with all of their specific AmeriCorps paperwork, and it is, like I said, it is a requirement of our federal funder, so it is an auditable document. So I'm going to ask that you set these meetings with your AmeriCorps members over the next month, and you sit down and you have the conversation, and you complete the documentation, and then I will be visiting, and by March 31st I'll be gathering this and the member service plan together and getting them into their member files for posterity. So that was really all I wanted to do, was just have a formal meeting together to go over this. And I did think, especially with the disaster going on, we were going to have low attendance, and that's fine, which is why I recorded this. So I'm going to be sharing this recording afterwards and reiterating the steps towards completing an effective member evaluation for the mid-year. And then I will be seeing all of y'all in the next month-ish, 6-ish weeks to complete this process. All right, you got any questions or comments before we wrap it up?
Do you want them to be doing this bi-weekly check-in instead of or is that something that part of the, how would you go?
So I am still having a wee bit of trouble hearing you, but I think you're asking how do you want the check-ins, the formal check-ins done with Amy in Owensboro. And so you are Amy's AmeriCorps supervisor. So yes, if you could set scheduled meetings with Amy, and they can be by phone, but are you and Linda back and forth, like every Tuesday she's in Paducah, every Thursday you're in Owensboro? Is there anything like that going on with you guys?
She's more in Paducah and I'm more in Owensboro on as-needed basis.
As needed. Well, so I would definitely hope that you're checking in with Amy when you are there, that when you are going to be in Owensboro for whatever reason, that you do set aside time to sit down with Amy for at least half an hour, especially at the beginning of her term of service. I'm sure that Linda's giving her plenty of guidance, but yes, as her supervisor, her AmeriCorps supervisor of record, you will be approving her timesheets, so make certain that you know how she's serving just by checking in by email a couple of times a week, every other day, and then setting maybe a phone call conference with her every other week or so.
All right, sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, we are a virtual team, so sometimes we're going to be doing this. I would prefer to do it by face-to-face, but I've worked on a virtual team for a long time, so sometimes you got to do it this way. Alrighty, well, it's lovely to chat with you, Ari, and is there anything you think we should share with the other supervisors once they listen to the recording?
No, just the question about the how you would measure.
Right. What is a lead volunteer?
Yeah.
Alrighty. I will get an answer to that question. Okay, well, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks.
All right.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.